Welcome, everybody. My name is Chris Maxwell. I'm the coordinator of member engagement for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. I'm really excited to have our guest today. His name is Edgar Wiggins, and he is the executive director of Baltimore Crisis Response Incorporated. Edgar, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, but also a little bit about how you kind of got involved with the crisis center world, with suicide prevention? How did that all come about?
Well, I've been in community mental health for a number of years. I came to Baltimore 29 years ago. And so when the opportunity to start Baltimore's first crisis center came up, I thought, let me throw my hat in the ring. And so little did I know that I would be starting Baltimore's first dedicated behavioral health crisis line. And so all of those experiences, but especially the experiences as working as a hotline counselor, were very, very helpful in terms of training staff, setting up the crisis line, and all the other things that you have to do to get a crisis service off the ground too. When I threw my hat in the ring for this job, I knew it was going to be life-changing. And so here I am, 2 months into my 25th year, and I've seen the growth and development of our organization and our services. And I'm, I think, reasonably very proud of what we've been able to do.
What are some of your biggest crisis center successes? What are some of the things that you really hold on to?
Well, the thing that I hold on to is that we have created a model that is a comprehensive model for behavioral health crisis services. So the model is a very rich model which has grown over time. I mean, I remember when we started with 8 hours of phone services, 1 mobile team, and 3 beds. And so we've now grown to be much more comprehensive, and we've been able to increase our vision beyond the services that we initially saw. So, I mean, if I'm proud of anything, I'm proudest of the model of crisis services that we've been able to put together, maintain, and expand over the years.
What are some issues, what are some barriers that you experience as a crisis center director, or that your crisis center has experienced over the years?
Well, I think, and of course, we're a nonprofit corporation, and everybody struggles for funding. I mean, nobody's handing out, stacks of greenbacks. So it's always difficult trying to get and maintain the resources that we need to operate, and to really operate at the highest standards. And I'm sure lots of directors, that's the ongoing saga of resources. But the other thing is the issue of stigma regarding the people that we serve. I mean, one of the things that often gets people to the crisis point is that they haven't wanted to acknowledge or admit that they have a behavioral health problem, a mental health problem, a substance abuse issue. When I look at the rate of suffering for the people that we see, many of them, it's been years, and it's been because of attitudes. Well, in my family, we don't talk about that. And so that's one of the other things that we try to do is get together with other groups like the National Alliance on Mental Illness, get together with some of the consumer groups, persons with lived experience, so that we are a voice. But it's hard because people don't want to talk about these issues.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it's not just one group of people. You're trying to balance the line of culture between law enforcement, from the general population, from the people who probably need your services the most.
Right.
That's tough, fighting society to try to not only prove your services worth, but to make a case that this can give you a life worth living, and then this can help you in your time of need. And you kind of mentioned your comprehensive model, which sounds really amazing. Some other successes at the crisis center. What is one thing, if you had to say one thing, what would the one thing that makes your crisis center unique? What would that be?
But I've got this little TV show that's aired in Baltimore, and it's called Mental Health Matters, because the thing that we found was that the most impactful thing was somebody talking about living with their illness. And listening to this guy describe his sort of downward spiral into depression, the fact that he never reached out for help, wakes up in the hospital, and he said something that I'll never forget. He said, you know, because when I got medically stabilized, they transferred me to the psychiatric ward. And as I sat in that room and listened to 8 other people describing exactly how I'd been feeling for years, and all of a sudden the light bulb went on, and it was like, you know, I'm not the only one. So it's a half an hour show. So when we get to the end of the show, I said, so my last question for you is, what advice would you have for someone who has thoughts about dying by suicide and is thinking about it or planning it? And he said, say something. And, you know, when that airs, calls to our hotline increase.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they're like, I saw the show about that guy, and I'm that guy. And that is, you know, to me, that is just so amazing. And of course, I'm so incredibly grateful that here's somebody who, as part of his recovery, is telling his story so that other people don't have to go through what he went through. And I think those kinds of efforts to get the word out to people that help is available and recovery is possible and treatment's available.
The stories that we get from people with lived experience are so powerful, and they are so critical in spreading this message of reaching out, ask for help. You may feel alone, but all you have to do is say, I need help right now.
Yeah.
And hearing like that is something that I hear when talking to people with lived experience so frequently, is that Me Too moment.
Right.
That, oh my God, I'm not actually alone in this. Somebody else has experienced that. Me too. What would you say are some benefits of collaborating with the Lifeline, being a part of this network? What do you all get out of it?
There is a level of technical expertise and training and resources that our staff has been available to us. What we found is that it really helps us be a better crisis center. And so Lifeline is always out front with, here's some new research. And also, of course, being exposed to an additional knowledge base, it pushes us to increase and expand our technical expertise. There's things that I know we wouldn't be doing, risk assessment wise and other things, if we weren't part of the Lifeline network. And I love reading the stuff that comes out weekly. I love reading the quotes from the callers. I love hearing about what colleagues are doing, advances that they've made in their services. So being part of that is really important.
But it sounds like a large part of what you get out of it is that community. Like you feel like you're part of something that you get to communicate with other people, kind of in a peer setting almost.
For us, being part of the Lifeline means that, you know, we're on the cutting edge of information that's out there. But you're right, being part of a community, whenever I come to an event or a conference, I mean, it's wonderful. You know, I see people a couple times a year and it's like, I just saw them last week because we share a common bond and a common mission.
Our individual settings might look a lot different, our programming might look a lot different, but there's always those few things where it's like, yeah, no, I get it. We're right there. We had the same thing happen last week.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's powerful to be able to share those experiences.
It is. It is. So we're doing, you know, risk assessment 101. We're doing suicide assessment 101. We're doing de-escalation. We're doing, you know, establishing relationships and connections with people that are in distress. And as long as we can keep pushing ourselves and not get complacent and looping back to the Lifeline, that's one of the things that Lifeline really helps us do. Don't get complacent. There's always more for you to know, especially about suicide. It's an incredibly complicated phenomenon. I got a check in the mail from a donor recently, and they just said, you know, our son died by suicide, and we wish that he had called your service.
Mm-hmm.
We know he didn't, but we wish he had. So here's something to help you with that work. I mean, the need is just so great, and you know, we do what we can, but it's the work is noble work. It's important work. It's life-saving work. There's nothing like talking to somebody that says, you know, I'm here because of what somebody on the other end of your hotline said to me. That's why I'm here, because I'd given up hope. There's nothing like that feeling.